Hey everyone, so for the week 3 Evo bacteria paper, I'm going to just show you my Word document, just makes it easier. So we start off with, think of this scientific paper that you would hand out in a college class. So that's the level that you're dealing with. Some people that are academically inclined but may not know much about the topic. Okay, so that's how we get our wording in there. Then there's several resources. It talks about the issue of antibiotic resistance. And then in here, you're going to choose one that has become resistant to multiple antibiotics. And then I gave you a link for a place to start with. You do not have to use this link. It will work, so I might download this list style rubric just to control link over to it, right? But whatever makes you happy. Okay, we're going to go through 6 things in our 150 at least word count paper. So why does the medical community fear antibiotic resistant bacteria? You get sort of the idea up here, but of course you want to do your own research to get in there. Give a brief overview of the chosen bacterium, including the genus species. So we need to narrow it down to one specific bacterium. Bacterium is the singular of bacteria. Nice lovely Latin thing. Make sure you're talking about one. You can talk about a group if you want to, but then you need to tell me which bacterium are part of that group of bacteria. Okay? And I would just focus on one. It makes life easier. Why make your paper even bigger? Because the more bacteria you have, the more you're going to have to talk about. So if you can focus it in, narrow it down to one, is much better. Then how common is the bacteria? So how likely am I going to run into the bacteria? How is it transmitted? So if someone has it, do they cough on me? Do they have sex with me? Do they not wash their hands? Do they bleed on me? Do I touch an animal? Like, how do I get this? What diseases does the bacterium cause in humans? So when a person gets this bacteria, what happens to them? What's the process that they're going to go through? Is there a special name for the disease that's different than the bacterium? Or is it all just the same thing? Like, it's all just called, whatever. We'll come up with something. It's all called pencil phobia, and that's when you get the pencil phobia bacteria, which would be an example of, I'm looking at my pencil here, of you turn into a wood-like texture across your skin with a blood that's black like a lead. Sound good? So if that was what my made-up bacteria, of course yours is actually real, did, that's what I would talk about. Okay? Briefly explain how the bacterium has evolved to become resistant to antibiotics. You're going to do this through discussing how natural selection or artificial selection is involved. Let me pause it for a second. Okay, I'm back because now mostly my min pin is quiet. He's considering. Okay, so this is going to be the natural selection or artificial selection that's involved in the development of antibiotic resistance in bacteria. So you can talk about how these affected the bacteria and how that led to evolution. How do antibiotics reduce the bacterial diversity of the bacterium? So talk about specifically your bacterium, not the entire world. And what is herd immunity? How can an individual avoid the bacteria? So how can I keep from getting the sucker? And then what solutions is the medical community suggesting? Solution or solutions, you only have to do one. It's nice if you have more than one. It's not a requirement. Just what are they suggesting? Is it too late? Have they just washed their hands of it all? And then format your paper. So it's APA. You have references. You have in-text citations. You're using academic resources. So like .org, .edu, not just random web newspapers or something. You get a point for references and 2 points for everything else. Make sure it's double spaced. All that stuff. So here's how I would approach the assignment. My introduction, which the title of your paper will take the place of your introduction heading. So you won't say introduction, you'll just have your title heading, whatever that may be. So that's going to be all about the issue of antibiotic resistant bacteria. You're going to briefly discuss what the issue of antibiotic resistant bacteria is. Don't do paragraphs. Try to keep it like half a paragraph. And then bring into your bacterium into this discussion. So you picked one that is becoming resistant, right? And maybe becoming more resistant. So you'll talk about resistance and you'll be like, an example is, what did I say? Pencil phobia and blah, blah, blah. Then end with a thesis like the genus species is at risk of becoming antibiotic resistant through the process of evolution, but X and Y can help slow or reverse the process, where X is going to be what our individual or public does, and Y is what the medical community does. So with my fake example of pencil phobia, I might say that the genus is called pencil phobia, I don't know, Phoenici. Sound good? Because we're in the University of Phoenix. So pencil phobia phoenici is at risk of becoming antibiotic resistant through the process of evolution, but avoidance of using unwashed pencils and a new modern mechanical pencil can help slow or reverse the process. So of course you'll be using a real bacterium, but that gives you an idea of what you might say. Okay, bacterium overview. Describe the bacteria. This is a part of this paper that can become a mind dump very quickly. Like you just want to throw every neat thing that you learned out there, which is great, but make sure you tie it all back to your thesis. That keeps it from being a mind dump and keeps it into the research. Okay, so you want to say, here's this cool stuff that I learned, which is great. You're going to start with like a sentence is from your own voice, so you're not just quoting somebody. Make sure your quotes and your paraphrasing supports you and not the other way around. So you're going to describe the bacteria. Include in this description the genus, species. That's going to bug me, that's capital, because genus is always capital and species is always lowercase. I'd italicize it, but that would confuse too many people. How common is it? So you might have statistics like your likelihood of getting this disease is 1 out of 10 million, or 1 out of whatever contract the disease in America annually, something like that. How is it transmitted? So how could I catch it? What does it do to the humans? So, you know, if it's our pencil phobia, like I said, it would turn you into wood with black blood. Whatever. In evolution of the antibiotic resistance in resistant bacterium. So for this evolution section, what I would do is define natural selection and artificial selection, and then I talk about which one is more involved, or if both of them are. Is it a mix? Is it one? Is it, you know, the other one that has allowed this bacterium to gain antibiotic resistance and evolve, right? So remember, natural is it just kind of happens in the environment. Artificial, it's more like humans are doing it, usually on purpose, but maybe it's accidental artificial selection. So you talk about those. What are they? How do they lead to evolution? Say which one you think it is that ended up resulting in your bacterium's evolution. Then biodiversity. What do antibiotics do to the biodiversity of your bacteria? So not the entire world, just your bacteria. If you take the antibiotics, does it do anything? Are they already resistant to them all? Or does it kill off some of them? Does it not kill off all of them? What is this, good or bad, you know? And then herd immunity, bring this into this discussion by saying what it is and why does it help. Okay? It may not be so prevalent in your bacteria, because it may be that you have a bacteria that people can constantly contract and never gain immunity, but you can say, like, in that case, you might say herd immunity, though not particularly helpful currently in this bacteria, is blah 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 blah, and when it is applicable it helps because of blah blah blah. Unfortunately, the bacterium does not allow for this to happen, or it does. You talk about that, whatever works. And then individual, for the individual person, what steps can the individual take to avoid contracting the bacterium? So I said earlier that in my thesis that I would talk about, you know, not using messy, dirty pencils. So you would talk about that same thing here in more detail. And medical community, what solutions are they suggesting? In my thesis, I talked about mechanical pencils, so that's what I talk about here. If you talk about several things, make sure they're all in that thesis up ahead, because this is where you're going to be wrapping that together, tying it up in a pretty bow. You can put them under one section if you want to. I just know personally, if I did that, I would just be answering with like one quick sentence and not developing it enough, so that's why I have them in separate sections. And then finally, the conclusion. Is there time to reverse halt the antibiotic resistant evolution of your bacteria? So we know it's already resistant to some drugs. Can we reverse that? Can we halt that? Is there a help? You want to broaden out your conclusion to the real world. So you might say, like, this is an overall issue, that there is no time, the end is nigh, we need a solution. You can say, no, there is time, there is hope. We have to take everything on an individual basis. You can say, there isn't, but we can avoid it, avoid, whatever works for your bacteria. You have to think about what does the future hold, and then extrapolate where we are going to go with this, okay? Let me pause this for a second and flip over to the other style Oh, I'm on the second page. Oh no. Why did I do that? Oh, okay, I know I did that. Okay, my brain's dead. So medical community fears, that's just the whole antibiotic resistant issue thing. Should I change that to antibiotic resistant? Let's do that. Let's say issue of antibiotic resistance. That looks just so much better, right? And then it gives you the whole thing, tells you it's out 2 points. This I find really helpful as a checklist. The paper, the list style rubric, I would highlight the whole thing. I'm going to highlight it. Control A the whole sucker and Control C it and then Control V it. So paste it into my paper and then write it like in between the sections and then delete out the actual outline and make sure everything's APA formatted. So whatever works for you. I like the list style, the traditional rubric as a checklist. So I've written my paper and I go, did I do this? Check. Did I do that? Check. Or I would say, maybe not check, but like highlight, right? Whatever works for you. So it's here too. See, that's just going to bug me. Okay. And then the same thing, it just tells you really nicely how many points each section is. This is a little bit more clearer this way, I think. This also tells you when you look at the rubric weights. You can see this one's, so the first one, the issue of antibiotic resistance, 2 points. The overview, 4 points. So I expect that to be a pretty big section in your paper if it's worth 4 points. Well, maybe the resistance not as much. 2 points, so about the same length as the introduction. Diversity about the same length. Solutions for the individual, 1 point. Medical communities, 1 point. So I expect these to be much shorter and pretty, not take up so much of the paper. So you can always do that with your rubric. Like look and see where the teacher has weighted the most information, and that tells you that chunk is going to be hardcore in the most of the paper, or a big chunk of it, I can say, okay, so it's about a paragraph, so maybe I need 2 paragraphs here. And then I can do a paragraph and then do like a short paragraph and a short paragraph. Whatever works for you. At the end, there is a reminder that you must have a full reference APA citation with at least 1 matching in-text citation, or Heather will be very, very irritated. There's also a reminder that you must have the thing double-spaced. Please do not submit a non-double-spaced paper. Please, please, please. If you're worried about how to do this, it's very simple. Just go to the APA 101 formatting video that I have on my channel, and that will help you out greatly. But just make sure you have that. It is very disappointing to me as a teacher to get a paper that does not have a title page, does not have a title heading, is not double spaced, and does not have correct reference citations. When I see that, I think this is going to be an F. A really, really bad F. And you don't want me to think that. You want to have all that pretty stuff there that looks all gorgeous. So I think this person deserves an A. Look at how gorgeous it is. And that way if I take off points because of something, I'm like, did I take off points to this person? Their paper is so formatted, so correct, and everything looks so beautiful, and I know they hit all the main points. Why am I taking off points? Like maybe I need to change the rubric. It must not have been clear. This is such a good student. You always want your teacher to feel that way. That's why I'm so anal with participation and everything else, because if you present yourself the way I'm asking you to do in another class, the teacher would rather change the rubric to give you full credit than to take away points from you. So that's always the key. And I know a lot of people feel like format isn't important. They complain that it's like 3 entire points out of a 15-point assignment. But let's face it, format is how you show yourself to the world. It needs to look spotless so I don't notice it. Because if I notice it, you're doing something wrong, and I think lower grade. I think that you don't know what you're doing. And in the professional world, it's even worse. It's like I see a really badly formatted paper, or like grant proposal or grant update. Well, if it's a proposal, I just throw it away. If it's a grant update, like someone's already got the grant and now they're doing a report on it, I go, oh my gosh, we need to do a full audit on these people because they do not know what they're doing. So make sure that you do that format. As always, if you're worried, send me a draft. It makes me so happy to see a draft and review a draft and to help you out and edit. I like to edit. It's fun to edit. And I would much rather spend an hour editing your paper than to have to give you a low grade. Okay, hope this helped. Makes everything make sense. Help you wrap your mind around it. Enjoy!